on-the-job learning and training are going to be key factors in addressing the disruptions caused by the pandemic. There have been a massive skills shortage emerging across the globe. Huge segments of the economy are facing severe skills challenges. And this is where the type of training that apprenticeships offer will have huge value in closing the gaps, adding support to employers, and boosting productivity, competitiveness, innovation again. So this morning's session is going to look at what the last 18 months have meant for the apprenticeship systems globally, or at least our speakers will refer to the countries where they are involved in. But we're also wanting to identify areas of success. We want to see the good practice. We want to understand the positive developments that have taken place. How has learning been maintained in organizations? What health and safety measures have been introduced to ensure continuity of training? What methodologies have come about, such as online learning, hybrid learning? Also, we need to understand how this kind of learning is going to continue, if it will continue post-pandemic, and how do our systems adapt to this kind of shift? And we are seeing this rapid need for transformation at a global, regional, and country level. And today's session is going to see how countries can be supported to implement systemic changes, as well as how can the private sector and other stakeholders, including participants in apprenticeship training, deal with the long-term consequences and move forward. I want to quickly welcome my panel and ask them to move on to the first question. So we are looking at the discussion this morning, as I said, from the perspective of policymakers, private sector, and youth. We are looking to launch this session in this track 3 under apprenticeship development. And we look forward to interacting with you as the audience. Just a housekeeping note, we will not be monitoring the chat function. So if you do post them in the Q&A section. And please remember to use your interpretation
speakers and participants, including, of course, the distinguished representatives of the government of China. This is the single largest labor market in the world, and as well as the distinguished representative of the government of Austria, which is a reference when it comes to apprenticeship schemes. So thank you for the opportunity. I think it's a great topic, of course, and certainly very, very timely. And there is no doubt that the COVID-19 pandemic has severely impacted the labor markets in many, many respects. We are in a context of a fractured global supply chain, so millions of jobs have been lost on the one hand, and in some countries there is a shortage of labor. But in any case, the question of skills is relevant everywhere globally. And what we observe as well as a consequence of what you described, Nazreen, offices being shut down, or activities moving to remote, that at least during a period of time, the offering in work-based learning opportunities and apprenticeships has reduced massively. I got a data point in mind, which is in Latin America, where 70% of the offering in apprenticeships has disappeared during the pandemic. And it's not that the necessity has decreased, on the reverse, for the reason I described. Many people out of work or without education, and in some cases, shortage of labor. And there is always this skill component into it. What we have seen, thanks to the pandemic, is that the technology, of course, has been supporting business continuity, but has shown as well the capacity to support training needs and skills building across the workforce. And every time we implement new technologies, and we are in a context, of course, of where technologies are developing at the speed of light, we have never experienced such an impressive change in terms of the usage of technology. Every time there is a new technology, there should be the skills related to it. If you just have the technology without the skills, of course, nothing is really moving. And of course, when you talk about human capital building, it's all about skills. As you highlighted it, of course, I got two hats on top of my role at Nestlé to lead one of the important regions. I'm also the chair of the Global Apprenticeship Network, where we work together on work-based learning solutions. And I'm also the chair of the Global Alliance for Youth, where with 25 like-minded companies, we are looking for solutions to help support the youth, get the skills to be able to access the labor markets. So clearly companies, and certainly the most advanced, have been mastering the usage of technology and have moved and innovated in the way to ensure both business continuity and learning and training continuity. And certainly the use of hybrid learning, virtual reality, technologies, micro-credentials and digital access, all have increased across Nestlé, but have increased also across our partner companies, and are showing that it is possible. It is not because the world has been disrupted and we got less in-presence opportunities that we have to stop the continuity of training and learning new skills. And we see that happening across many companies and many of the members of the Global Apprenticeship Network, such as Hilton, Zurich Insurance, JP Morgan, among others. All of them are really committed and moving the needle in this respect. Just would like to highlight also a very interesting experience at the regional level, which is in Latin America, where the GAN Latin America has held an event called Formando el Futuro, so shaping the future. And that was an event focused on, soft skills, the importance of soft skills, the importance of technologies applied to education, but also highlighting the business case for work-based learning, including apprenticeships. I think it's really important to walk the talk and showcase that combining the theory and the practice and having companies engaged into the building up of the skills is absolutely of the essence, and there is a return of investment for the community and for the society through the building up of human capital, but there is also a return on investment for companies that can shape and build up the skills that they need across the workforce. So a lot is happening in this respect with all partners, public and private, and increasingly private, hopefully, to make an impact and move the needle in this respect. And I think it's important also to highlight that this is not just about technologies, that soft skills are also very important in the current context and will increasingly be so. Why is that? Because if we want to build up a resilient, agile, and creative workforce capable to adjust to the volatility and the uncertainties of the world of today, we need to have people embracing those skills and being capable of working teams, for instance, and understand how to relate to each other and work together, leveraging the technology and working with teams to be more agile and more efficient down the road. So I think what technology and the COVID has showed us is that there was the possibility and the opportunity to leverage the technology and to move into hybrid modes. But more than ever, we have seen the importance of engagement between the public sector, government, global academia, business and companies, and as well the youth. So we got all represented around the table, virtual table today, and working together. Of course, we can prepare the skills that the workforce for the future will need. And there is no better way to do that, combining the theory and the practice. And this is exactly what work-based learning and apprenticeships stand for. Thank you, Nazreen.
Thank you so much, Laurent. I think you've set the tone for a positive message that through all of this disruption and chaos and uncertainty, there are opportunities that we can take, and apprenticeship training offers one of those opportunities to really amplify labor market transitions, to build this agility, to create new skill sets. And I think the opportunities presented for reskilling, upskilling, and new skilling through apprenticeships are ever present. And I'm really pleased to hear the message from yourself, speaking on behalf of the private sector. And we know it's a big role to play, but we look forward to the continued discussion. Thank you. Mr. Feng, can we try again? I hope the technical issues have been sorted out, but we look forward to hearing from the government, our host government. Thank you.
同传能听到我说话吗？同传，同传，同传你，同传能听到我说话吗？
Hello. If the interpreter could hear Mr. Tian clearly, please, maybe you can type in the chat box and let us know if it's available. The interpretation is available for now. We cannot hear from the interpreter. Hello?
Yes, because the interpreter cannot hear from the floor.
I'm sorry, but I think
We still cannot hear properly from Mr. Tian.
I think what I will do, Mr. Feng, with your permission, is I will have the other two speakers speak, and then we'll have you make the closing remarks for this first part of the session. And I hope by then we will have address the technical issues. My apologies to the audience. I know that we were very much looking forward to the input, but we will come back to Mr. Peng. Mr. Hochfeld, can we move to you, please? And, we'd like to hear the Austrian experience. As Laurent mentioned, one of the gold standard countries in terms of apprenticeship training, development, very much part of the culture and fabric of Austrian society. But what has the Austrian government done to catalyze economic and social development under the theme of building back and leveling up better? I think we'd be keen to hear how Austria has responded to the challenges presented by COVID, with particular reference to skilling and apprenticeship and vocational education. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the WorldSkills organization for the opportunity to depict the Austrian approach, how we have met the challenges posed by the COVID-19 crisis in apprenticeship training. And in particular, what strategy we are pursuing now in the, I would say, hopefully, post-COVID-19 crisis. Well, as you already mentioned, it's evident that the COVID-19 crisis has a major impact on our apprenticeship system, especially since companies see their commitment to dual training as an investment in the future. Due to the economic consequences of the COVID-19 crisis, investment decisions in particular were postponed. And due to this, we had to reckon with a slump in new apprenticeship positions up to 30% at the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis in spring 2020. What we are doing, we have counteracted this with financial support measures, such as the Apprenticeship and Small Business Bonus 2020 or the short-time work for apprentices. And this enabled the expected decline to be significantly reduced. In 2020, the number of apprentices decreased only by 0.6% compared to 2019. And while the aforementioned financial support measures focused selectively on the effects of the crisis, economic effects of the crisis, it was just as important to keep the system attractive, both for prospective apprentices and training companies. And fundamental to this is to shape the apprenticeship training system to be up to date and future fit at best. And in Austria, the apprenticeship landscape is therefore constantly being revised. The megatrends of digitization and sustainability, as well as globalization, play a key role here. An important aspect of international professional championships also comes into play here, as they also serve as a platform for the development of future standards for professional qualification and learning outcomes. And in addition, they impressively show that professional qualifications do not know any boundaries. So in this constantly ongoing process of apprenticeship development, it is essential from our side to involve companies as directly as possible, better to define the future need of qualification requirements, as well as to develop apprenticeship occupational profiles. And in order to make dual vocational education and training in Austria fit for the future, we are going to reorganize the description of our job profiles. Job profiles are formulated now in a competence-oriented manner. The topics, digitization and sustainability, as well as soft skills already mentioned, are implemented as cross-sectional competencies in almost all more than 200 apprenticeship occupational profiles in Austria. And in addition, the modularization of apprenticeships enables us to react quickly to current, especially technical developments and to map them. Just for example, in the modularized apprenticeship profession, mechatronics, the special module additive manufacturing was set up in 2021. Thus taking into account progress in production using 3D printing, and especially since 2015, the special modules, robotics, and programmable logic control technologies have also been introduced. Another example is the special module high voltage technology in the field of electromobility. It was set up in the course of the apprenticeship package in 2020 in the modular apprenticeship profession vehicle technology. So to sum up this overview, our claim is that apprenticeship training in Austria is established and perceived as modern, future-ready, and thus also for companies, as well as for young people and adults, as attractive training opportunity in the overall Austrian education system. And that assumes that the modernization processes have to be run continuously. The starting points for individual further development steps come directly from the economy, especially from the companies, but also from international vocational and training events such as the World or the WorldSkills in particular. I would close here at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hochwald. And I think what's very inspiring is this approach that you have to regularly addressing the need for updating of the curricula, responding to the needs of industry, in fact, having industry drive the trends. And I think that's so important in the policy debate because it translates into influence in practice. And it's wonderful to see. And I think that's an important piece of policy, good practice that we must take forward through the rest of the discussions for this week. I was also keen to hear you speak about the need for apprenticeships being future fit, having your learners future ready. What I liked also is, what you mentioned about the competition, creating, breaking down barriers and boundaries. And I had someone the other day mention that apprenticeships can make the world smaller because everyone can move around and learn similar skills and the important skills. It also makes the world bigger for apprentices who can move to many different places. It gives them mobility and agility. And I think that's what you're speaking to. So very, very important points that we will also include in the further discussions over the rest of the week. The translation issues have been fixed. So Daniel, I'm going to put you on hold for a few more minutes and go back to Mr. Weng. And I hope, fingers crossed, that we are all good to go. So thank you very much, Mr. Weng. Over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Feng. My apologies. There was still some problem with the translation, but I didn't want to interrupt you. Translation will be added to the recording, but I'm very pleased that you were able to share what has been done by the Chinese government, the policy approach. We know that there are some very practical interventions that we can all learn from. We've seen a number of initiatives launched by the government, including online vocational programs, free skills training. This has reached, I know, more than 5 million people, the range of platforms. So the acceleration of digital skilling. We also know that the demands on the Chinese labor market, as Laurent said, the biggest labor market in the world, at least 300 million people would need reskilling and upskilling by 2030. This is data coming from a number of research points from the World Economic Forum, Ernst & Young, KPMG, etc. So there's huge opportunity for addressing the policy initiatives, and there's huge opportunity for apprenticeships to grow in stature. We also know that there has been a trend in China for a focus on university. So I think your department plays a very important role to push and promote the value of apprenticeships, the respectability of apprenticeships, and the recognition that apprenticeships offer the same values that we see in countries like Switzerland and Austria and Germany. So we're very keen to see how this works in the years to come. Thank you very much. And I'm going to move over to Daniel now. Daniel, we know that COVID has not been an easy process for everyone, particularly young people, but perhaps we can get a first-person perspective from you to understand how are young people, at least the people that you interact with, responding to the pandemic, and what should be done to provide support and access to quality apprenticeship opportunities, and who is responsible for creating these opportunities. So thank you, Daniel. We look forward to your input.
Thank you, Nasreen. So I think one thing that this pandemic has shown us very well is that young people are super flexible and solution-oriented. Many of them got involved in their society and turned their entire lives around. Most of the problems I witnessed were completely of a different nature, at least here in Germany. There were schools, university, businesses, and governments slowly and uptight to the pre-pandemic status quo. In addition, education was one of the least important issues for politicians at that time, whereas it plays a central role in the lives of young people. I don't want to make any accusations. It was a difficult time for everyone, and in no way I envy the politicians who had to make decisions during the pandemic. What I'm getting at is that young people in particular have given up super much since last year to make sure that the older part of the society is better protected. And I'm not even necessarily talking about the social restrictions, but lost opportunities, the chance to have a normal start through their studies, the chance to get an apprenticeship, and the chance to start in their working life after the training. And I think that we have a good opportunity to give young people a chance again when it comes to apprenticeships. So what can we do? For example, instead of shutting down these programs, we need even more apprenticeships. We need more young people to get excited about it. And yes, maybe now the final grades from school from some of the young people are not what might expected. But in my opinion, everyone who graduated during the pandemic did a great job. There's another key point I want to mention. At the WorldSkills conference last year, I was on a panel about the importance of transferable skills. And I still believe that these transferable skills, soft skills and other things, are the key to increase the quality of apprenticeships. This pandemic in particular, I think, has shown us how quickly the world is changing and how quickly it can change, how quickly jobs that seem to be safe for years can be put at risk. And therefore, it's more important to focus training more on these transferable skills and things like solution-oriented thinking or communication than on training just for one specific job. Finally, I want to recap my points. In order to support young people in this post-pandemic situation, we need to be provide more training positions. We need to give young people who may have stumbled in this pandemic a chance. And we need to be more focused on transferable skills in a future-proof education. Thank you.
Wonderful, Daniel. And I think your point we must reiterate it. Instead of shutting down training opportunities, we need to create more. We need to open up markets. We need to open up training schools. We need to open up the placements for apprenticeships. Now is not the time to stop. And we've seen it in this cyclical nature of economic up and downturns, that the moment there's a downturn, by the time there's an upturn in the economy, the demand for skills is even more urgent. And then we start training, which is too late. So let's use this little bit of a lag now. We're already seeing, in the US, in the UK, there are 1 million openings, but there are no skilled people to fill those, so that jobs and skills mismatch can really be fulfilled. And what better time to put young people into apprenticeships than now? I think also that point that you're making about transferable skills is so important. We need to be able to equip people to move with a sense of agility across sectors. The skills shouldn't just be for the manufacturing sector or only for the hospitality sector. Again, COVID showed that, when the hospitality sector shut down, many of those customer service skills were able to be put into use in the medical sciences, in patient-facing in hospitals. People were put in call centers, the business services environment. So there are opportunities. I don't think we capitalize on it enough. And I think what is also key is, again, the soft skills. And I think we need to change the wording. So maybe the WorldSkills conference is an opportunity for us to create a movement. It's not soft, it's essential. It's critical skills that make you successful in the market. It makes you successful in life. And sometimes, by putting the word soft, we detract from the value and importance of these skills. So Daniel, thank you very much. We'll come back to you in a short while. So that was the first round of our discussion. I'm going to now do a quick round of questions to our speakers. Mr. Feng, I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to ask you how apprenticeships have been used to address the shift from informality to formality. We've seen the success of China in addressing poverty reduction. How can we use vocational education and apprenticeships to scale up these transitions? we're going to have the translation provided, but I think what is important is advocacy. I think the policy reforms are key. We're keen to learn from you and what has been done, especially given the number of people who have moved back into poverty as a result of the pandemic, and how can we use skills to move people into the labor market, to create socioeconomic opportunities for them to become active in society once again. Thank you very much. Laurent, I'm going to move to you, and I'm going to ask you what is the key thing, of the one, and I know there's no one silver bullet, but what could be the key thing that the private sector can do to enhance and increase the uptake of apprenticeships? We've heard from Daniel that that's something that young people need. They need opportunity, but must it be through policy design? Does it need to be through systems improvement, funding? What could be some of these solutions? Thank you.
Thank you, Nazreen. And as you rightly said, there is no one silver bullet, and I strongly believe that the private sector can contribute to all the dimensions you highlighted, be it the policy design, the systems improvement. When it comes to defining the curriculum, I think it's really critical in a demand-driven model, where the companies will take apprentices in areas where they need the skills for the future, and they will train them in the skills that they need for the future. So it's a system, and this is what makes it so efficient. So companies, small or big, have a role to play by sector, by categories, to contribute to the curriculum. But now, if there is one thing that the private sector can do in a context where the labor market needs more skills, where the youth needs more to be skilled, to get skilled, as highlighted by Daniel, and in a context where the business and the private sector needs also more skilled people in the face of unprecedented technological changes. The one thing that the private sector can do is to take more apprentices and to develop more work-based learning opportunities. That's the one thing that it can do. It makes good business sense. It's an investment, but it's a small investment in human capital and in the skills that they will need for the future. So my message to the private sector is very simple. Just take one more apprentice today, and it's millions of opportunities that we will be able to provide to a labor market, to young people that need to get those opportunities to make the bridge between education and employment. And we know how critical it is for the community. Thank you, Nazreen.
Thank you, Laurent. And I like that. It just takes one opening, one opportunity. And if we think of our business confederations who have thousands of members, and if we look at it at a global level, that's millions of organizations. If each one just takes one learner, we can create millions of apprenticeship opportunities in a year and multiply that every year. So here's a challenge to our private sector partners, to our private sector audience. But the public sector as well has an obligation to train. So we look forward to multiplying these opportunities on an annual basis. And let's start from this conference onwards. So thank you very much. Joseph, I'm going to ask you a question from the audience. And Rumbi Mapani has asked a question wanting to know, what tools do you within the Austrian government use to engage industry in the process of updating the curriculum for apprentices, and how often do you do this? And I think this speaks to Laurent's point about industry working on curriculum development, shaping a demand-led system, and perhaps some tips from you on how that can be done efficiently and effectively. Joseph, you're on mute. Sorry, Joseph.
I'm muted. I will start again. Okay, so just to say, thanks for the question. We don't have any specific tool. There is a steady process ongoing. Whenever industry comes and sees a specific need of new qualifications or specialization in a specific area, they come to us, or they talking to a social partner organization, and that comes to us. And then, so it's an ongoing process, and we're just working all the time on the apprenticeship profile landscape. And for example, in 2020, we have reorganized, modernized, and more than, I think, more than 30 occupational profiles in that way. So you see, that's an ongoing process, and whenever there is a specific need from specific industry, they can come to us. And so also the question to how often, whenever it burns, come to us, and we will work on it. Beside this, we have now written in our legal act that every 5 years, due to specific contents, the entire occupational profile landscape, the apprenticeship occupation landscape, is screened. The last was due to digitization and sustainability and resource economy. So hopefully that the question is now answered to you.
Thank you very much. I think the point is this ongoing dialogue between the private and public sector, creating the channels for this engagement and interaction. Yes. That's part of the agility of the system, which I think is key. So very interesting to learn that. I think, we've seen some examples of this happening in a few countries, but your model seems to be one that's working. So I do appreciate the input. So thank you very much. We had a question from Joseph in the audience, but Joseph, I wanted to tell you that the question that you asked is an important one, but if you join us on Thursday in the sessions, the policy and practitioners will be there to really give you a response. I'm holding it until Thursday. So Joseph from South Africa, we haven't forgotten your question, but we will come back to you on Thursday. So here's a reason to join us. So let me come finally to Daniel in this round. And Daniel, one of the big challenges that policymakers and employers are facing is how to attract young people into apprenticeship programs. How do you think we can improve the way we're marketing apprenticeships, or how do we improve the perception as one that's really respectable? It gives you opportunities, it gives you mobility, it has the same level of respectability as a university degree. So I'm going to give the challenge to you, Daniel, to guide us.
Thank you. So I believe that before we start thinking about how we convince young people of the value of apprenticeships, we should first check how ourselves perceive apprenticeships. Because I believe that problem is not with the young people, but with our societies. Here in Germany, for example, academization was pushed forward for years. So in school, it was communicated, if you want to achieve something in life, you have to study. And that simply become ingrained in people's minds. Another point is that the young people often choose to study because they don't really know what they want to do after school. That is also a point that is often criticized in young people, but I would like to say one thing. The world has simply become more complicated. There is a much greater choice of what I can shape my life. And I can already hear the first people saying, yes, that's great. I would love to have that much opportunities when I was young. And that it's true in one part, but we have a very fitting catchphrase in German, wer die Wahl hat, hat die Qual. It's a burden to have the choice. And then that it's in my view that this describes quite well the problem young people face today. There are simply so many options, but you don't have the feeling that you can simply choose something that is interesting and excites you. Instead, society gives you the feeling that you have to make the right decision. They have to know a clear path to the future, and you're not allowed to turn off that path. And that, in my view, is a problem, and it's totally wrong. To have young people to get excited about apprenticeships, we need to show young people that an apprenticeship is a starting point. It's an opportunity to get known a profession and perhaps also to get know yourself a little better. But after that, all doors are still open. And that's for me the key to change the perception of apprenticeships amongst youth. To take them by the hand and show them the possibilities that an apprenticeship can offer, instead of further increasing the pressure on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. And I think that last comment of yours is the opportunity rather than the pressure. So your points have been really valid in terms of choice. Perhaps we underestimate the burden of choice, the range of subjects out there, the range of courses. I think career guidance is so important. And as the Global Apprenticeship Network, in my organization, we're seeing this more and more. We're seeing the role of educating communities and teachers to share the benefits and value of apprenticeships to young people, because there's an African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. And I think we all have a role to play in promoting the opportunities, promoting the choice that are available to young people, and demonstrating the viability of apprenticeships as a career pathway. So thank you very much to all of our speakers. I'm going to come to each of you now for a 1-minute closing comment. Before I summarize, we've asked the organizers to give us a few minutes extra over time. So Mr. Feng, 1 minute to hear from you. What do you see from apprenticeships for the future, and what do you expect out of the conference this week? Thank you. With your words. So we look forward to the role that China is playing in hosting the conference this week, and we look forward to the WorldSkills competition in 2022. So thank you very much for your contribution. Laura, a closing statement from you, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I couldn't say it better either than Mr. Feng. There is no doubt that there is an unprecedented need for skills in the current context, and that will not diminish. If anything, this will increase. There is a model which is both effective and efficient, and I would argue that this is the most effective and the most efficient. So let's make it happen at scale. And if we think that work-based learning anywhere is of the essence, because technologies are coming all the time, so what you learn today, you will need to refresh and relearn all the time. This is really the best form of learning, training, education, and let's make it central to our education models. It's not the only model, of course, but has to be central to the education model going forward, and the private sector has a role to play.
Wonderful, thank you. Joseph, we'd like to hear from you, please, your closing thoughts for today's panel.
Thank you very much. So my expectation for future of apprenticeship system is that the system learns to get along with all the technical, but also educational and social developments, especially via an ongoing open dialogue between all the stakeholders, official social partners, and experts from companies. To do this, they achieve to be constantly on state-of-the-art, future-oriented, attractive to apprentices and companies. And in this sense, I want to add something. International vocational championships, Euro and WorldSkills, play a central role as a platform for the exchange of future developments in the area of professional education and training, as well as a role model for the presentation of top-level professionalism of that graduates, especially due to the fact, again, that all stakeholders, experts, and officials, Laurent is here, are cooperating very closely here. So that's really a fruitful area, fruitful platform for us. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Daniel, final words for today. That we will still hear youth voices for the rest of the week, but I think given the context of today's discussion, where do you see apprenticeships going and what can we take from the rest of the conference?
Thank you. So what I expect from a future-proof apprenticeship system is more flexibility, a focus on skills that make it possible to reorient ourselves after the training. And in summary, perhaps simply an adjustment to the fact that we all have to learn throughout our lives and need completely different skills than we might have needed in the past. And I hope that implementation of such ideas by policymakers, by the private sector, is one topic throughout this week in this WorldSkills conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our very distinguished panel. You've made my role as moderator very easy. You've set the scene for the rest of the week in an excellent manner. And Laurent, Joseph, you've made the point about stakeholder engagement. On Thursday, we're discussing alliances and partnerships for effective apprenticeships. We're also looking at tools for effective policy and systems implementation, and then how that leads into practice, also Thursday. So we really look forward to your participation, and we thank you all for your contribution as the panelists, as well as the audience. And I look forward to continuing the discussion this week. Good luck to each of you and enjoy the upcoming conversations over the course of the week. Take care and goodbye, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye. Be safe.
Recording stopped.